We're going to be taking a look at how we can find the sum of all the values inside of an array. We see here I've already created an array and I have all these values inside of it that we want to add together to figure out what the sum is going to be. Well, the first challenge we have is that sum is going to be a piece of data itself. We need to find a way to store that piece of data on our memory. Now, we can't just have it floating around like a freeloader because that's what your unemployed brother-in-law is for. So we need to find a way to store it on our memory. And by now in the series, you should know that the place where we temporarily store information is inside of variables. So go ahead and create a variable, and since we're adding integers together, we can assume that the sum of all these integers is going to be an integer itself. So you go ahead and make integer data, and you can call it whatever you want. I'll call this variable the sum, and its job is going to be to store each of these values inside of the array. Now I'm actually going to go ahead and set this to 0 over here, and the reason I'm going to do this is because we're going to be using a for loop to add all these values together. The first time we pass through the loop, we'll add this first value, then the second value, then the third value, and so on until we add all the values. Now because we have not passed through the loop at all yet, I'm just going to go ahead and set sum to 0 because the sum is 0 right now. We just want to make sure that it is actually at 0. Now we're going to go ahead into the for loop, and we know we need to put 3 pieces of information inside the brackets of the for loop. The first piece of information is going to be the initial value, right? And this is going to be the initial value of the variable that's going to be counting how many times you pass through the loop. We can just go ahead and use the integer variable x in this case. You need to specify what type of data you're working with if you have not mentioned x yet in your program. Since I have not mentioned x at all yet, I'm going to write that it's an integer right over here. And it's good practice to just go ahead and set this to 0. The reason we really want to set this to 0 is because remember, arrays start counting at 0, and we're going to need to use that 0 for something in order to access this first value over here, which is at position 0 and not position 1. Next thing we want to do is we're going to have the condition. Now we know we can just go ahead and write x is less than the amount of values we have in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9 values inside of the array. So I can technically go and write x is less than 9. And remember that would start counting at 0 and it would end at 8, which is still going to be 9 values. However, the problem with this is if we were to go ahead up here to our array and add another value to it, for example, we're in a little bit of a problem now, right? We have a little bit of a problem because now we'd have to go down and change this. And what if we forgot, right? What if something happened and there was a fire in our house and we just, we managed to add another value to our array and then we forgot to go down here to our condition and change that? Well, we've been in a little bit of a pickle. So what we're going to do is we're going to write duck.length. So you're going to write the name of your array. In this case, my array is called duck. You're not going to write the open and square braces. You're just going to write the name of it. And then you're just going to put a dot separator and then write the keyword length. And that's going to automatically look at how many values you have inside the array and replace it with that number. So right here, duck length over here. That sounds kind of funny when I say duck length. I should have picked another name for my array. Whatever, it's too late. When you say duck length, you're replacing this with 10. Not 10 inches, just 10. So I changed the name of the array to another animal and fuck. Give me a break. Next. Oh, come on, now you're not even trying. Bunny array. So we have the bunny length over here, which is going to be replaced by 10, which is the amount of values we have over here. Next, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go and write the incrementation, which is going to be how much you want to increase by each time you pass through the loop. Well, I want the variable x, which is keeping track of how many times I pass through the loop, to increase by 1 each time we pass through. So I'll put x++. Now we'll go ahead and write the body of our for loop, and in this case we need to remember what we want to do. We want to be adding one value from the array. Like this, for the first time we pass through, we'll add this value and then this value. Each of those is going to be added to sum, right? We're going to keep adding it to this variable we have for the sum. So if we want to do that for each time we pass through, what exactly we're going to write inside of the body of the for loop? Well, we'll go ahead and start out by writing the variable sum, and we're going to make this equal to sum plus bunny, which is the array we have. It was always called bunny, nothing else. It was never called anything else. And we're going to go pass through the variable x through here. Now we know that if we're referring to our array somewhere else, right? After we've written it up here, if we put a number inside of here, that means we want to talk about that position inside the array. Well, the first time you're going to be passing through this loop, x is going to be equal to 0, right? Because we saw this over here with our initial condition, which means, or the initial value for a variable, I should say, which means position 0 is this position over here because we know arrays like to start counting at 0. Well, then when we pass through later, it'll be position 1, position 2, and it's going to keep calling upon the values inside of your array until you go through all of them, right? Until you reach the last one over here, which is position 9. And remember, this bunny length over here is actually representing the number 10, and you can't go to 10, right? Because 10 was not going to be less than 10. Your 9 will be the last value less than 10, and you're going to stop at position 9. Now, the reason we write sum plus sum plus bunny, or sum is equal to sum plus bunny, you can actually think of it like this, right? Say we start off and we have sum, which is equal to 0 when we start off. So we have 0 plus position 1, which is 23, right? Well, now sum is going to be 23. Well, the next time we pass to the loop, we'll have sum is equal to 23 plus 30. Well, now sum is going to be equal to 53. Now the third time we pass to the loop, we'll have sum is equal to 53 plus 34. And next we'll have sum is equal to, that's going to be 87, right? So we have this thing, we see how this keeps building up, right? Each time you pass to the loop, it's going to keep building up, right? This first one over here is going to be when you have bunny 0, right? When the first time you pass through, you're passing through a 0, and it's going to call upon the first position in your array. Then you call upon the second position in your array when you have bunny 1, and then down here you're going to have bunny 2, and you're going to see how this keeps adding up, right? Whoops, I wrote that wrong. I really wrote that wrong. There we go. So, whoops, still wrong. Okay, there we go. So we see how we keep passing through the loop right there. We're going to keep passing the loop, and you're going to keep adding a value from your array to this variable sum until you pass through them all. And if I were to go ahead and run this, we'll see what the sum of all the values inside of our array is going to be. It's going to be not showing up on my screen because I have not requested it to be printed out. That is a criminal thing for me to do, and everybody who is watching this is probably crying. So I can go ahead and write the sum of the values inside of your array are... or is. The sum is. Yeah, the sum is. It's going to be is. It's going to be grammar lessons inside the video. Sum. Plus, I put a period at the end to make it look nice. I can go ahead and move this off the side. I want a little bit more space to work with. Right there. Okay. So now if I were to go ahead and run this, now we actually have the printout request, and we see that, well, we have all these values, right? So this is how it's going to be added up, right? The sum of all the values inside the array is 23, 53, 87, and we see how this keeps going up and up and up all the way to 275. If you didn't want to have this appearing this many times to actually see the progression, what you can actually do is you can go ahead and move this outside of the for loop, right? If you move it down here, then you're only going to get the final sum, and you're going to see displayed once. The sum of the values inside of your array is 275. So that's how we find the sum of all the values inside of our array. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below and I'll respond to you as soon as possible. And for all the parents out there, don't worry, we were not talking about duck length, we were talking about bunny length. I will see you guys in the next video, which I may or may not be recording from prison.